Welcome back to our Serial Killer Hall of Infamy, shows that perhaps highlight the darker aspects of mankind, and a topic we've been asked time and again to revisit. To be frank, and this is a terrible truth, there is no shortage of serial killers to talk about. Just the USA's list alone could give you enough grisly bedtime reading for a decade. And that's just the bios, not the reams of analysis that followed their bloody deeds. In case you're wondering, the FBI tells us that a serial killer is someone who has committed 2 or more murders, usually by themselves, on different occasions. That's what makes them a bit different from spree killers, people who go on a short-lasting rampage. So now let's get down with such a man. There are female serial killers, by the way, but they're rare. His name was David Richard Berkowitz. And no, he didn't have a father whose name was the diminutive of Samuel, but we'll get around to his alias soon. This killer was particularly frightening because he was the kind to leave letters to the cops. This kind of behavior, undertaken by a few serial killers going all the way back to Jack the Ripper, adds a very menacing edge to their already horrific deeds. It's not enough that they kill innocent people, but they flaunt it. This is one such letter that he wrote to a journalist in the summer of 1976, aka the Summer of Sam. Please inform all the detectives working the case that I wish them the best of luck. Keep them digging, drive on, think positive, get off your butts, knock on coffins, etc. Upon my capture, I promised to buy the guys working on the case a new pair of shoes if I could get up the money. Son of Sam. Offering to get the cops new shoes. It was brazen, it was cheeky, and people were dying. In another letter, he informed the cops through the media that he just couldn't stop killing. But what exactly did he do? As with all or most serial killers, we can't talk about what they did before we talk about their childhood, as their sadism is usually born during their younger years. All we know about young David is that he was born in 1953, but his birth was in some ways a tragedy. His Jewish mother had grown up in a poor New York City neighborhood. There, she had met a man with the surname Falco. She married him, and then the man left. Later, she got into a relationship with the married man, and then had a child with him. As he was married, she named her child Richard David Falco. This baby was the son of Sam in the making. As things turned out, at least by some sources, the married man didn't want anything to do with the child and threatened to leave the mother if she didn't do something about the baby. She adopted him to a family from the Bronx who had the name Berkowitz. So now we have David Berkowitz growing up in the Bronx with a Jewish-American family of modest means, but more than able to bring up a child. It's said he was a troubled child, and while being adopted, for some kids can present some challenges, according to the book Confessions of Son of Sam, which included interviews with the killer, he was told as a kid that his real mother had died during childbirth. We're told that this made him feel extremely guilty and weighed on the young child's mind. It's said in some bios that he had become a bully and difficult, so much so that his parents sent him to see a psychotherapist. He also enjoyed lighting fires, but let's face it, many kids do. He wasn't an especially bad kid, just a little naughty at times. But then, when he was 14, his adoptive mother died, which in his mind made for 2 mothers dead. Adopted kids sometimes don't deal well with separation, and it's said after her death, his relationship with his father became worse. In 1971, he did what many mixed-up young people do and joined the army. During his 3 years, it said he showed an impressive acumen for marksmanship, something that would serve him well later on the streets of New York. He served in Korea and then was given an honorable discharge. Just after he left the army, he found out that he had been lied to and that his birth mother was still alive. Rather than rejoice, he later said in interviews that this deception made him furious, as well as the fact that he had had 2 fathers in his life that hadn't cared for him much. For much of his life, he lived with loss and guilt, and even though he made a fairly unsuccessful attempt at befriending his birth mother and her family, he would later say that this sense of identity had been torn apart. He said he felt unwanted, like an accident, as if he were never meant to be born. Suffice to say, this didn't bode well for what was going to happen in the rest of his life. He took a few jobs, including one at a post office. Later, one of his colleagues said she was terrified of this son of Sam who was killing on her streets, and she had no idea that her colleague, David, was the murderer. She told New York Magazine that he just chatted about mundane things. He talked, she said, like anyone else. But he wasn't just anyone else, because he was stalking people on the streets of New York. Just after finding out the truth about his real mother not actually dying, it seemed something cracked in David, and he got himself a .44 caliber gun. It's at this time that it's said he started lighting fires around New York City and that he began to hear voices. He would sometime later be diagnosed as having paranoid schizophrenia. Women were his enemies according to the voices he heard, and his first touch with severe criminality would be attacking a 15-year-old girl with a hunting knife. She didn't die, but others soon would. You see, he thought he was doing a job that needed to be done, and that he was taking the lives of what he believed were impure women. Let's now remember that it wasn't long ago he found out his mother had had him with a married man and then given him away. "I'd kill her again. I'd kill them all again," he once said in court when asked about one murder. He thought he was doing righteous work. It's even said that because he chose women that looked the same, pretty, long brown or dark hair, many women in New York City cut their hair and dyed it blonde. We should also say that the adoptive mother who had lied to him about his birth mother looked like a lot of his victims. But we've gotten ahead of ourselves here. Let's now look at his victims. David often chose people that were in pairs, and that's what happened at 1:10 a.m. on July 29, 1976, when two teenage girls were sitting in their car talking about this and that in the Bronx area of New York. One girl opened the car door and a man approached fast. He shot into the car 3 times in total, killing one of the women and injuring the other. A few months later, and he was in Queens. And this time, the victim would be a 20-year-old man and an 18-year-old woman. The guy was shot in the head and the woman only suffered minor injuries. Both survived the ordeal. Now a manhunt was on. A month later, also in Queens, a man approached 2 girls, 16 and 18, and asked for directions. Before they could say left at the lights, a man shot them both. They both survived, but one girl would never walk again. 2 months later, and again in Queens, 2 women were in a car after seeing the movie Rocky. A man shot into the car, killing one of them. March 77, and another girl is killed. This time she was alone. Police knew the same gun was used in the other murders, a .44 Bulldog revolver, and they had been told by witnesses a chubby-looking guy had been seen near the scenes of the crime. In April, he struck again, shooting a couple, 20 and 18, in the Bronx. They both died. And again, a man fitting the description of chubby was seen in the neighborhood. The press were all over it, not just in the USA, but worldwide. Here was a killer that just walked up to good-looking youngsters on the street and shot them dead. It created a huge sense of fear in New York. Who would be next? One minute you could just be outside talking about that great Iggy Pop or David Bowie concert you'd just been to, and the next minute a maniac has shot you through your neck. Then comes the first letter. It started like this: "I am deeply hurt by your calling me a woman hater. I'm not, but I'm a monster. I'm the son of Sam. I'm a little brat. When Father Sam gets drunk, he gets mean. He beats his family. Sometimes he ties me up to the back of the house. Other times he locks me in the garage. Sam loves to drink blood. Go out and kill," commands Father Sam. It gets pretty raw after this, but all the time he talks about being abused by some Sam character, his father, and talks about hurting women. More of the letter goes like this: "I love to hunt, prowling the streets looking for fair game, tasty meat. The women of Queens are the prettiest of all. It might be the water they drink. I live for the hunt. My life. Blood for Papa. Mr. Borelli, sir. I don't want to kill any more, no sir. No more, but I must honor thy father." While we can say with assuredness that David perhaps never won any spelling bees, what we do know is that he actually did have a tempestuous relationship with the father that adopted him. In fact, after his mother died, his father married again, and it said David felt unwelcome in the house after that. We had a fairly ugly kid, overweight, who's been rejected by most people in his life. It's also said his appearance and personality was so repellent, he never had a relationship with a woman. But did his father beat him, lock him up in a room? Who knows? Later, David would tell the cops that Sam was actually the neighbor's dog, and it was the dog who told him to go out and hunt women. We also know he was crazy, so we won't dismiss the possibility of Sam being a dog and also a father-like demon. The letter was so badly written that cops for a time thought that their man might be Scottish or Scottish-American, but that wasn't true. What's also weird is that later he wrote another letter, this time to a tabloid columnist, but it was well written. It sounded a bit like the American writer Charles Bukowski and was titled with a biblical reference: "Blood and family, darkness and death, absolute depravity, 44. It started like this: "Hello from the gutters of NYC, which are filled with dog manure, vomit, stale wine, urine, and blood. Hello from the sewers of NYC, which swallow up those delicacies when they're washed away by the sweeper trucks. Hello from the cracks in the sidewalks of NYC, and from the ants that dwell in these cracks and feed in the dried blood of the dead that has settled into the cracks." Maybe now the cops were looking at a William Burroughs fan. but they didn't have much time before the murdering started again. Another 2 incidents happened, both times with couples and not single people. We won't go into details, but in the end, the son of Sam injured 7 people during those attacks and killed 6. As for his arrests, to cut a long story short, the women had been followed one night by a man who had fired shots at her once she had run away. The woman told cops that she had seen this guy first near a car that she believed had received a ticket. This was investigated, and it turned out that the Ford Galaxy owned by none other than David Berkowitz came up on the radar. He was brought in for questioning. Police got a warrant to search David's apartment, but on seeing him one day head to his car, 2 cops got in next to him, their guns firmly pointed in his face. In that car, they found a .44 caliber Bulldog revolver. As the tale goes, the cops said, "Tell me who you are," and the man replied, "I am Sam." On August 11, 1977, David was interrogated, and he didn't deny anything. He said he had killed the women because a demon called Sam that lived inside the head of his neighbor's black Labrador had told him to do it. Despite these obvious mental aberrations, he was found competent to stand trial. He was sentenced to 25 years for each murder, and for each to be served consecutively. A year later, and he said he hadn't really been ordered to do those things by a dog, but he was just angry because of how the world had rejected him. In 1979, a year later, an inmate slashed his throat and almost killed him. Berkowitz said, "Fair play, I deserved it," and would not identify his assailant. All kinds of things happened in prison. In 1987, he became a born-again Christian and gave himself the name Son of Hope. He wrote essays about hope and redemption on Christian websites, and even counseled prisoners who had their own troubles. He also later claimed to be part of a satanic cult that included the owner of that black Labrador. He said 2 guys in his cult did some of the murders, but we'll never know because one committed suicide and the other died in a car accident. He has actually said a lot of things, including an admission that the voice he heard, the real Sam, was a druid devil. The truth is, we might never know, because no one really believes the words of Sam. Tell us what you think about the Son of Sam in the comments. Also, be sure to check out our other video, America's Deadliest Hitman, the Iceman Killer. Thanks for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you next time.